What is up, everyone? Welcome back to the Formula One Bros podcast. This episode is a little bit different. This is our Canadian Grand Prix race review, but it's a little different. Chris is out of town and is on his honeymoon, but I am joined by... Who are you?
Expert. No. I'm Laura, James's partner.
Yeah.
In crime. That's it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So... This we're going to talk about the Canadian Grand Prix in this episode, but the reason why I wanted Laura to join us was because she doesn't really know much about Formula One. In fact, this was only, I think, the second race we've ever watched
Fully.
Together. Last year was the I think the first race we watched was Brazil. Yeah. That was the first one. I don't know.
It was Lando Norris's birthday.
It was. Yes, it was Lando's birthday.
So, the really important stuff really stuck with me.
Yeah. So this is only the second race that we watched. And the reason why I asked her if she wanted to join for this episode is because she, with her having not really watched a whole lot of Formula One, not knowing a whole lot about the sport, I thought it would be cool to have a very fresh perspective on the sport, because my brother and I have been fans since we were very little, and you can, watching races, having been a fan for so long, you can get a very tunnel view kind of perspective on Formula One, and having fresh perspective is always really nice. So I appreciate her joining us. So we're gonna jump right in. After having watched the race, or I guess when you were watching the race, having this only been your second race.
Yeah, it was during.
What were your thoughts on the race? Was it exciting, not exciting? What did you think?
Oh, just in general.
Just in general.
Notes. This one, well, compared to the other one that I saw, this was definitely more exciting. I remember, last year, I guess, when we watched Brazil, it felt boring. Mm-hmm. I feel like I fell asleep, maybe possibly during the end, because it was just like boring.
I think we both did,
nothing happened.
That was at the point of the season where Ferrari was had stopped winning and Max started winning everything.
Yeah.
So
that one felt boring, but this one was exciting.
Mm-hmm.
There were a lot of like someone's engine went out, and they almost went off the track, and they had to get back on the track, and I don't know. It was a lot more entertaining than the other one.
I thought so too. I thought it was really entertaining. Pretty much we both knew from the start that Max was going to win.
Well, yeah.
I knew from the start. I had thought Max was going to win because he's won literally everything this year. But everything else, in the midfield, was it was really exciting, pretty much the whole race.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was a really, really exciting race. I thought it was good. There were a lot of drivers that surprised me that did really well, like Alex Albon getting P7. I was really sad because Nico Hülkenberg in the Haas started fifth, but ended up finishing outside the points, which I was really sad about.
What did he finish? I don't remember.
I don't remember either. I think it was 11th. Actually. Yes, I want to say it was 11th through 14th, somewhere around there. Looking it up on my phone.
And Alex won driver of the
day. He did.
Weekday of the day.
Yeah, driver of the day, which was fantastic. And actually, I don't know if you realize this. The race was 70 laps long. Mm-hmm. He started on the hardest set of tires. Those lasted 57 laps. He didn't pit until lap 57, which is ridiculous.
Did a lot of people start on hard? I thought a lot of people started on medium.
Most of them started on the mediums.
And then they all pitted out the same time.
Yeah, most of them started on the mediums. And only one person, I think it was Kevin Magnussen, started on the softs. Oh, Nico Hülkenberg finished 15th, so he dropped 10 places throughout the race, which not great. Not great. Felt really bad about. So she took a lot of notes.
That's not true. It's a half page.
I mean, took some notes. That's good. So we're just going to go through and talk about each of her points, and then I have a couple things too. So what's the first thing on your list?
It says Canadian Grand Prix, little star, formation lap. And then it got much less in depth. But I wrote one of the little facts that popped up on the screen was that Lewis Hamilton had 3 wins in the last few years. I don't know how many years on that track. And so I immediately was like, oh, he knows what he's doing. And it really set up my expectation for him, which, if I remember correctly, he didn't really wander far from where he began the whole thing. Sorry.
He started second, I think, and then finished third.
Yeah.
Which is pretty impressive because where Mercedes, I think you heard me talk about a lot about it, but Mercedes was really bad at the beginning of the season, and they brought a bunch of upgrades in Spain, in Monaco. The car is basically a completely different car now than when they started this season, so they're actually doing really good now. And George, I think, finished fourth.
Or fifth?
Fourth or fifth. Come on. George, he DNF'd. That's right, because he smacked the wall.
Oh,
I forgot about
that.
Yeah,
also.
but he was running up in fourth, up until that happened. So they've been doing good. And yeah, Lewis has won there 3 times. His very first win ever in Formula One came from Canada, so he does know that track very well. I think Lewis's most successful track is actually Spain. He's won there 6 or 7 times, which is kind of ridiculous. Almost every year the past 10 years, which is kind of ridiculous. But yeah, what do you got next?
Okay, so next, I have a star next to this one. I wrote, Kevin Magnussen, amazing he stayed on the track.
Yes. If you all remember watching the race, going into that final little chicane before the start-finish line, Kevin nearly avoided hitting 3 drivers, and then jump back on track. And I remember
he had to swerve really fast.
Yeah, he had to swerve very fast. And you actually brought up the fact that why he had to go the way that he did, and I point out there's a little orange essentially a styrofoam
it's
brick.
A marker.
Yeah, like a marker. They have to, if drivers leave the track at a certain, in certain corners, they'll have that. If they leave the track, they have to get back onto the racetrack within those little markers. And fortunately, F1 drivers have crazy reflexes, because if it were me driving that car, I would have either hit that marker or hit the wall. The fact that he was able to get back and then get back into the race was pretty insane.
Yeah. And that happened right in the beginning.
Yeah.
So that was exciting.
Yes.
Oh, next is a question. It says, do they have no warning if someone in front of them brakes? No brake lights, question mark?
No. Formula One cars do not have brake lights.
That seems dangerous.
They do have lights on the back of their car, but the lights on the back of their car are used primarily for 2 things. If the power unit is harvesting energy, meaning it's not being run at full capacity because they're trying to recharge the battery, it'll blink, it'll flash red.
Okay.
Or if it's raining. If it's raining, they'll just constantly flash red, so that way through all the spray and everything, the drivers can sort of see the driver in front of them. And they need that because Formula One, per second, the tires move, the wet tires move an obnoxious amount of water, and the spray that comes off the cars is kind of impressive to watch. So they have those flashing lights on the back of the cars for wet conditions, and then if the power unit is harvesting energy, like rebuilding the energy back up. Not for brake. They're not brake lights.
Do you think that's safe? Like, do you think it would really give a competitive advantage if you could see the person in front of you braking? I feel like they could use some brake lights, especially in those moments where, where like the two, I don't remember who it was, went off the track. Like if they could have seen that they were hard braking, like maybe they could have, and not gotten in trouble.
In instances like that, that definitely could help. But those, I mean, the drivers are so, they're most of their training comes from not only their physical, like fitness, but also like their reflexes.
Yeah.
They train a lot with reflexes. So, and they're also, I don't know if you noticed this, but on the left or right side of the racetrack, when they come up to a corner, there are meter markers. It's like 200, 150, 150. And those are used as braking points.
Oh.
So like if they get to like 150 meters before the corner, or however many meters they need to brake, they'll know like, oh, I need to brake just past the 150 meter board, and then I hit the brakes. But they also know at the beginning of races when cars have all of their fuel, they're like super heavy and they take a lot more time to brake. They need to brake a little bit sooner, so they can kind of anticipate that happening.
Yeah, I'm not trying to get caught up on brakes here. I just
That's
feel
okay.
like
No, that's a good question.
Be maybe safer.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely could. Yeah,
Well.
That's definitely a good question.
Okay. Next I wrote, Logan Sargent, his engine died. Sad. That's just my thoughts.
I was
on
really
that.
sad about that too.
Sad for him.
Yeah, I was bummed. I want so badly Logan Sargent to do well, and he's actually
because he's the only American.
Yes, because he's the only American. Have a little bit of American pride there, but I want him to do well. But it sucks because he's in a Williams. Williams is like historically one of the most successful teams. If you look at the entire history of Formula One, like the most winningest teams are Ferrari, McLaren is next, then Williams, then Mercedes and Red Bull. So as a whole in all of Formula One, Williams is a very, very successful team. But really from like 2000 and I'll say like 2007, 8 ish. They had a couple really good years in there, and then they just took a steep decline 2011, 2012. They've been doing really, really bad. And have just been
car or because of the driver?
It's maybe a little bit of both. So the problem that Williams is facing, there are a lot of problems that are facing Williams. One, they're one of the only family-owned Formula One teams. Every single other Formula One team, their Formula One division is like, it's not their whole operation is Formula One.
Yeah.
Like Ferrari, they have their
Everything.
Formula One, they have their endurance, they have their GT cars, and they have their road cars. McLaren, same thing. They have their road cars, they have Formula One, they have IndyCar. Mercedes is the same way. Aston Martin is the same way. The only other one is Haas, but Haas F1 team is a subsidiary of the Stuart Haas NASCAR team.
Yeah, not the avocado company.
Yes, not
famously confused.
Yes,
but
so Williams Williams is named after their owner Frank Williams. Well, McLaren's also named after Bruce McLaren, but Williams doesn't have any other operation. Their only operation is Formula One. That's it. And so because of that, they don't get a lot of money from other places. So the team itself doesn't have a lot of money compared to like Ferrari, who before the cost cap, their operating budget was like $400 million a year.
Is there like a limit to how much money a team can invest in creating a car?
Mm-hmm.
So then is it really
I think
a
it's
money
150 million. Well, yes, because this is their first year that they're spending up to the cost cap. They weren't even
Williams
making.
is.
Yeah, Williams is. they weren't even being able to spend that much money. And also, because they don't have as much money as, say, Mercedes, Red Bull, Ferrari, the facilities that they have are not as up-to-date, well-run, efficient, good as Ferrari, who can dump a crap ton of money, millions upon millions, almost billions of dollars, in these racing facilities. So they don't really have that. So they're already on the back foot there. And it really stems from the fact that they just don't have any money. And at the time when they were winning a bunch of races, their racing facility was super high tech, and it was, cutting edge, and they had all the smartest people working on that car. And then the rest of Formula One kind of caught up and then surpassed them. So that's kind of why we've seen Williams go down. So going back to Logan Sargent, he's actually doing really well this season, despite the fact that he is in a literal tractor of a car.
It's okay.
Yeah.
After this, we're going to start a GoFundMe for Logan Sargent and his team, because that's all he needs. Just more money, and then he'll win. Yeah. It's fine. Okay. Let's see. I wrote moment of silence for the bird that Max hit. So
I forgot about that.
I have been thinking about that all week.
Because a bird. Yeah, I think at the end of the race, like when they pulled up at the end of the race, I'm pretty sure Max got out. The first thing he did was look at the front of the car and saw bits of dead bird there. So I would not want to be the mechanic who had to take the nose off to get the dead birds stuff off the car.
That was early too.
Yeah, not the first time. Canada is interesting because they have it's essentially in a park. Like I showed you on the map. It's essentially a park.
It was so pretty.
It's very pretty up there. But they have ground, the track has just groundhog nests and burrows all around it. And it's in a river, so there are lots of seagulls around. In 2016, Sebastian Vettel was going into the first corner. It's a left and then a quick right. And he had to swerve in the middle of the corner because there were just two seagulls just chilling on the track. So sometimes you do get a lot in 2018 or 19 when they were in Singapore. A huge Komodo dragon was running across the track.
And they hit it?
Yeah. Well, no one hit it, but Max drove by it and was yeah, there's a huge lizard on the track. And Christian Horner came back and was yeah, watch out for Godzilla.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah, it's not the first time. There have been other instances where birds or other animals have been hit by F1 cars.
Do their cars have horns?
No.
Oh.
But their engines are really, really freaking loud.
Can you imagine? They're just beep,
beep.
I would have watched years ago. Okay. I don't have too much more. Oh, this is another question. I wrote to myself, I know they can't pass with a safety car out, but can they almost? You know what I mean? If it's
that's
out,
a great question.
Can they, kind of position themselves where...
side by side?
Yeah, or at least get...
So actually, there used to not be a rule about that. The only rule previously was that your nose could not pass the nose of the driver in front of you.
The front.
The front.
So you could get
you could
pretty close.
But in 2021, it came down to the very last race in Abu Dhabi 2021. It's probably now one of the most infamous races in Formula One history. But Abu Dhabi 2021 was the last race of the year. Max and Lewis were fighting for the championship, and they were dead even on points. There was a safety car about 5 laps from the end of the race. And Max had pit for soft tires. Lewis was still on old hard tires. So Max had faster tires. But what Max did during the safety car, the last couple corners, he pulled up right next to Lewis just so that he wasn't passed. But then when it started,
he had faster tires.
Lewis got away first, but he was close enough so that way in a couple corners he could pass. And they made a rule after the season was over that you could not have any part of your car alongside the car in front of you. You have to stay single file.
So they were all just following the rules.
They were just following the rules.
I get it. I was like,
Yeah.
use your brains, guys. You could
Yeah.
really be getting up here.
Yeah.
And this is my last one. I just wrote Lando unsportsmanlike behavior. Did we ever find out what that was about?
Which, okay, yes. That actually goes along with what we were talking about with the safety car.
Oh.
So also under safety car, once all the drivers like catch up to the safety car and all the other drivers, you have to maintain a certain distance from the car in front of you. The magic number is 10 car lengths. So imagine
when it's out? When the safety car's
yeah.
out?
So you have to stay within 10 car lengths of the driver in front of you. You can be closer, but you can't be further than 10 car lengths away. So imagine the cars in front of you, and then imagine 10 F1 cars, and then your car. If you go past that, you can get a penalty. I've seen that happen in races where drivers were too far back and they get a penalty. I was very confused as to the calling the penalty unsportsmanlike conduct, because typically, like,
That's
if you
what
were
happened? He was too far away?
yes, he was too far behind the driver in front of him under safety car. That's what happened.
Is it because it messes up the person behind you? Or like
It can be seen as that. Like if you're doing it, it can be like hindering the drivers behind because they can't pass you.
yeah.
But typically, I've seen penalties like that happen where it was, they were given the penalty, but the language of the reason for the penalty and the language read failure to something along the lines of like failure to maintain distance between under safety car, something like that. So I also was very confused about the reason he got unsportsmanlike conduct. I still don't know why it was called unsportsmanlike conduct.
So it was that it didn't he like pull out in front of someone when he was going back from the pit?
Yes, he did pull out of someone, but that necessarily he didn't get penalized for that, and he didn't like his team. That would have been more so a team thing rather than him. But I was really confused because there wasn't really any proof. I think they could have justified it calling it unsportsmanlike conduct if there was proof that he did it on purpose to like hold back or like hurt the other driver's chances of in the race. But there wasn't any like hard evidence that said I'm doing this on purpose. I don't ever think that he did it on purpose, so I was kind of confused as to why they called it unsportsmanlike conduct. I don't know why.
Yeah, I hope his feelings weren't hurt. Because
I'm sure they were.
My feelings would be hurt.
I'm sure they were.
If I were him on TV.
I mean, they can clock it, and they can clock it, and like absolutely, like if he was over 10 car lengths back, slam dunk penalty, easy. But calling it unsportsmanlike conduct to me was weird, and I also would have been, if I were Lando, I would have been like offended. Like, why did you call it? I didn't do anything unsportsmanlike. I was just, it could have been a mistake.
He'll be okay.
He'll be fine.
He's a tough guy.
Yeah, he'll be fine. Cool. So that's all you have. I just have a couple things. The one thing I was most impressed about, or a couple things I was impressed about, I was really happy for Alex to get P7, which was really, really awesome. He ended up like in 6th or 7th, I guess 7th place, like about 30 laps to the end, with like 5 drivers behind him, and like no one was able to pass him. So I was very impressed. And that kind of formed. Did you ever hear throughout the race anyone saying like a DRS train?
Yes. So
I've kind of explained to you what DRS is
multiple times.
Yeah.
But once more can't hurt. Cause kind of.
So if you're within 1 second from a driver in front of you, there are certain points throughout the lap where you get to activate DRS, which stands for drag reduction system. Basically, you press a button on the steering wheel, and the rear wing is kind of in 2 sections, and it opens a flap on the rear wing, which reduces drag, which makes the car go faster. Mm-hmm. But if you get, like we saw in Canada with the DRS train, if you get 5 or 6 drivers all lined up within a second and they all get DRS, it kind of defeats the purpose a little bit.
Because there's no room.
Because there's no room, and if everyone's getting that boost, then there's not really a boost to try and get around someone, except for the driver in front.
I feel like there's still a boost.
I mean, there is, but everyone's getting that boost.
Yeah.
So it can be a lot tougher to break the DRS train.
You just have to hope someone messes up.
Pretty much.
And then,
or can't keep pace with the drivers in front of them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, pretty much. But if you Canada is like kind of a tricky track to pass people. And so when you get a car that's like one of the slowest on the grid in front of a long line of cars, it's not very likely that somewhere in the middle of there they're gonna.
Yeah.
So that's why it lasted so long. The other thing, I was finally impressed the fact that Ferrari had a good race strategy. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I thought as soon as they didn't pit the drivers, because under safety car, pretty much everyone pit.
Yeah, not them.
They did not, and I was very worried because I was worried with everyone close back up, like all of the intervals and everything close back up, everyone all together. Ferrari was going to have to pit, and then that would shuffle them back. But they held out, and then...
Wasn't there another safety car? And then they took that?
There wasn't. There almost was when Kevin Magnussen and Nick DeVries kind of had their little kerfuffle, and then went off the track. But they were able to keep going, so there wasn't another safety car. But I think they were just able to keep pace with the drivers in front of them, and then everyone else kind of fell back. And then there was like a 20 plus second gap where they needed to pit. And the first safety car, everyone pitted really early. Mm-hmm. They pit really early. Like, I think it was lap like 16, 17, something like that, which everyone was kind of targeting only pitting once. So, but everyone changed tires really early. So I kind of knew that everyone would have to pit again. And yeah, they managed to pull out fourth and fifth. So I was very, very impressed with Ferrari throughout the race. So I'm going to ask you a couple of things. Okay. Of all of the teams, all 10 of them.
Okay.
Which team do you think performed the best this weekend?
Oh no. Okay, so I get the teams and the people mixed up.
Mm-hmm. So teams like Red Bull, Ferrari.
No, yeah, I know. Okay. I know. Like, yeah, I know that. I mean, like, I forget who was on which team. Mm-hmm. But I do know that Lewis Hamilton is not a Mercedes.
He is a Mercedes.
No, I mean, like, you know what I mean. Never mind.
Okay.
Okay, so, what team did the best?
Mm-hmm.
Who was the other McLaren? Not Fernando.
That's Aston Martin.
See what I mean?
So Fernando, Aston Martin.
Who's his partner?
His partner is Lance Stroll, and he finished 9th while Fernando finished 2nd.
Then I feel like I think Fernando Alonso did a really good job.
He did do a really good job.
And his Lance Stroll could be looped into that. That's fine.
Yeah.
I feel like they did the best. Because Max is always up there.
Yeah. And Sergio Perez finished... 6th.
Lewis Hamilton did fine.
Mm-hmm.
But he always is up there as well.
Mm-hmm.
I was watching Yuki Tsunoda for a while. He was all over.
Yeah.
He was all over the place.
He was. Unfortunately, he finished out of the points in 14th.
Yeah, but I think he's so cute. And for a while, he jumped up.
He did. He was
single digits at least.
For a bit. And I like Yuki Tsunoda. Do you know that meme that's Kirby holding a knife? There's like a picture of Kirby
But
from Super Mario holding
I
a
know
knife.
who he is. So how does it go?
Well, it's just a picture of Kirby holding a knife. That's what I think Yuki Tsunoda is.
Okay.
That's all I have to say. But Yuki did well. Nick DeVries his teammate did finish last, which I was really sad about.
Yeah.
Well, of the drivers that finished the race, technically Logan Sargent finished last because he was the first one to retire. But
So I wouldn't say while I'm watching, I'm focusing on the teams because I really just get them mixed up. Who's on what team? Especially since they're still competing against each other. I just am kind of watching the drivers. And I really wanted Fernando to win.
Yeah, I know. I did too.
So
If you had to pick one driver that you thought did really well this weekend, who did the best?
the best?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, Max was the best. He won. But I guess Lewis Hamilton did the best. He was the most consistent.
Yeah. I would put him right up there with Fernando because they both started. Lewis, I think, started second. Fernando started third.
Yeah, and they just switched.
And they pretty much just switched places, which is very consistent. I mean, Lewis Hamilton, I think this is his third podium of the year. Third podium of the year.
What race is this?
Oh gosh, this is race number. Let me go back to. This was race number 9. Race number 9.
And he's only finished top three times.
Wait, hold on, that's a lie. 1, 2, 3. Wait, no, that's right. Go back. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, 9. It was only an 8th race run because Imola was canceled. But I think there are only one or two races that Fernando hasn't finished on the podium, and then Lewis, I think this was his third or fourth. Maybe it was only his second podium.
So are there 20 races total?
23.
23.
But there will end up being only 22 raced because Imola was canceled. But yeah, I thought Lewis did really well. My pick is probably Fernando.
See, I wanted to say him, but I already talked about him.
Yeah.
Like, what if they see this? We have to
I
make sure we talk about everyone. No, you don't know that. We have to make sure.
Yeah. Cool. Do you have any final thoughts on the race?
I was gonna ask you if okay, math. How many are left? 23 minus 9.
14.
Great. There are 14 left. Thanks for doing that for me because I was not doing the numbers at all. Do you think anyone who's not like Max or Lewis Hamilton, because they're both like always up there, is there anyone who you predict to be kind of, from what you've seen so far, like a dark horse, someone who might just pull it together and be right up there with them, who maybe isn't as expected?
That's tough. Because at least I can see. I mean, obviously Max is throwing the mix. I mean, Fernando has been super consistent getting on the podiums. Now Lewis, I think I discounted Lewis, especially after seeing that car's performance in Bahrain in the first like two or three races. I think I discounted Lewis from competing for the title. But now that Mercedes is kind of getting back on form a little bit, I can see now Lewis kind of closing the gap to Max and maybe fight for. I mean, at this point, I don't think anyone's going to be able to fight Max for the championship, but I think Lewis could definitely. He definitely has some skin in the game for second, in the title. I also, I mentioned Fernando. Sergio Perez, he started off really, really strong. Max's teammate. But the last couple races, he's kind of not been doing well. Like in Monaco, he didn't do great. And here in Canada, he didn't do that great either. But I think if he were to get back up to where he was at the beginning of the season, being able to like fight for race wins with Max, I think he can definitely do it. I don't see either Ferrari driver.
You don't think they're going to be a dark horse?
No, I don't. Next year, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Next year. My brother and I have talked about this a bunch on here, but I think next year will be a very good year for Ferrari.
They're plotting.
I think they are.
2024.
They've like almost completely restructured the team and the company. Like back in Maranello, they've almost completely restructured the company. The last time they didn't have an Italian running the team was Ross Brawn, who's, I think he's British. I don't know. Well, anyway, Ross Brawn.
Sounds right.
That was the last time they won.
When they didn't have an Italian?
When they didn't have an Italian running the team.
I don't know that is real evidence.
Well,
but
and also
I see.
the CEO, their current CEO is not like
Italian?
from inside the company. So they have a brand new CEO for this year. They have a new team principal, a new person running, basically new people at the heads of pretty much every single department. And they did it at the very beginning of the season. So naturally, that was going to cause a rift in the team.
Start.
It was a rough start. And when all of that started happening, I was kind of like, okay, maybe this season's not going to be that great. And that has proven me right. But I think the way that they're restructuring and have realigned the team, I think it'll set them up for better in the future. So I think next year Ferrari will be my dark horse to compete for a title, but not this year.
I feel like they've got a few races under the... This is with absolutely no knowledge or anything. Like, I'm just like going off of feelings here. I know nothing. But do they really need to take a whole season to like get their ish together? Maybe
Yeah.
they have 9 races under their belt.
They
come
do,
on.
but the
Tough
thing
love.
is,
Again, don't know anything.
the car that they built for this year, they started working on last year. So there comes a point at every season where teams stop developing their current car and focus all of their efforts on building next year's car. So this car had started on, I want to say like around Singapore last year, which would have been late September, or early September, somewhere around then. They completely stopped developing the 2022 car and started focusing solely on the 2023 car. So the car that they have now was built and designed last year.
Okay.
And so now with all the restructuring and new people, they're still working with last year's car, or with the car that they built last year. They're still working with that.
Okay.
They can bring upgrades and improve the car, but this current team that's restructured now won't be able to start working on... We won't see like the results of truly what they can do until they start working on the 2024 car.
Okay. I think I'm gaining a different understanding in a way that this differs, obviously, from like a contact sport where your skill usually is a better indicator of whether or not you're going to win.
Yeah.
But like, correct me if I'm wrong, a team with maybe a not so fast car but excellent strategy, would that still be no match against a team that just has a faster car?
It can definitely be up there.
Like, I guess maybe does strategy not play?
It
as
does.
much.
It
as
does. But the thing now is with Red Bull is the best. They have the best car and they have the best strategy. So they have the best of everything. So
Max is Red Bull.
Yeah. And so they are like setting the standard. You can have a not great car and have really, really good strategy and really like talented. Like Ferrari, for example, in 2012, built a terrible car. But the two drivers that they had were very good drivers. Fernando Alonso was one of those drivers. And for most of the season, Fernando was leading the championship.
See, I feel like they need to pull that again. And they have to be like, listen, team, maybe we don't have the fastest car. Next year we will.
Mm-hmm.
Now we have to rely on strategy.
Yeah.
And then I think they could pull that together.
I think so too. Since they've hired a new strategist, their strategy, I've noticed, has improved.
They don't need 14 more races to do that. They've done 9. They just have to try some things.
Yeah, it is very different. Like you mentioned contact sports. Like I'm a big baseball fan. Mm-hmm. When the year that the Atlanta Braves won the World Series, there's a deadline in the season where you can like make trades for players. At the trade deadline, right before the trade deadline, they had a 13% chance of even making it to the World Series. And then after the trade deadline, they made a bunch of trades, and then they won the World Series. So it's not like it's unlike that where you can make a bunch of changes and automatically start seeing results. In this sport, it takes some time to build back up.
9 races so far.
Yeah.
But okay, we'll give them some more time because, who are we?
Yeah.
But just kidding. No, they're all going to watch this.
Who knows?
Me. Just kidding.
Well, I don't have anything else.
Me neither.
Cool. Well, that will conclude our episode for this week. Next week in Austria, it's also going to be another solo episode, but this time it'll be Chris doing it and not me because we will be out of town. Yes, we'll be in Minnesota. So very excited. But next episode for Austria will be just my brother. And cannot wait to have him back, but he's having a lot of fun on his honeymoon. I'm really jealous. But that will conclude our episode for this week. So be sure, you go like and subscribe on YouTube, follow on all of our socials, TikTok and everything. And my brother, we'll see you after Austria.